living out of your counterfeit self. All right? And so you've got to take this journey first. And that goes for youth pastors as well. That goes for everybody, right? Youth pastors, your youth ministry, these young people who are sitting here this morning, you cannot expect God to call them out of their unredeemed self into their redeemed self if you're still living as an unredeemed person. You have to step into this too. All right? And so you begin to lead these young people into their true selves, and they then in turn will begin to lead their campuses into its true self. And that's the ripple effect that we're talking about. And I believe and I contend that there is, that the reason we are not seeing, one of the reasons we are not seeing quite the transformation that we expect or hope for or know is possible on our campuses and in our city is because there are too many of us who have sold out to some alternative version of ourselves that really isn't us. So that's the way that people see me, and so I just don't want to disappoint them because they wouldn't even know the real me, and I'm afraid to give up like friends and all of that because I'd have to start all over if I really stepped into the real me. But listen, if you do that, if that's your approach and your thinking, not only is it costing your life, it's costing the lives and the souls of tens and 20s and hundreds of other people that you're going to encounter over the course of your lifetime. All right? And so I want to encourage you all then to step into your new self. I used to coach. I used to teach at Sunnyside High School. You wouldn't know that, but I did. I taught there at the very beginning when we opened up, the very first year we opened up Sunnyside High School in 1999. I was there as faculty and staff. And so I was teaching there, taught there for 5 years. And while I was there, I coached basketball, boys basketball. And I love high school basketball. I love college basketball. But listen, let me tell you something that I discovered as a coach. As a coach, I discovered that I had people on my bench. I had people on my bench who I could put into the game at any given moment. And if I put some of these folks in the game and we were losing and we needed something to shift and we needed something to change, I knew there's some folks I can put in the game and we wouldn't see any difference at all. As a matter of fact, it would just become more chaotic. We'd have more turnovers. We would score fewer points. It would just be a hot mess is what would happen. Be a hot mess. But then there were people on the bench that I knew that if I needed something to happen on that floor, that if I put them in the game, they themselves were game changers. I mean, you take them off the bench and you put them on the floor, and I'm trying to tell you, all of a sudden the team that we were competing against that was looking like they were whooping our tails would start looking like they were elementary school kids because our game changers were in the game, and all of a sudden that other team would turn over the ball, they start throwing the ball out of bounds, they start throwing up bricks, and we would go on a 15-0 run in an instant because I've got game changers on my team. And I believe that God is calling you all to become game changers as you return back to the city. Now, I don't believe in mountaintop experiences, and I need you to know that. Because the same God who's begun to work in you this weekend is the same God who is with us and with you when you return back to Fresno. He is everywhere all the time at the same time. And so when you get back to Fresno and Clovis and Madera, you need to know that whatever God began doing in you, He is continuing to do it in the city if you would continue to submit yourself to His will. And so that is one of God's greatest promises, is that He is with us. He's with us. He's not just with us when we're with 549 of our closest friends. I mean, He's with you in your bedroom, in your classroom, in the car, on the bus. He is always with you. And so as you begin to call on Him, He continues to fill you up. And as He continues to fill you up with this radical love, with the fullness of all that He is, He then gives you this ministry, very specific ministry of reconciliation. That's what 2 Corinthians 5 says. Now, reconciliation at its root is this word conciliate. Okay? Now, conciliate is this idea where two others can overcome some barrier to establish a relationship that is as though they were meant to be. Now understand, they are two others. So, male or female, other. Or humanity and the rest of creation, other. Or God and humanity. We are other. We are made in God's likeness, but we are not God. We are other than God, and God is other than us. That is what makes him holy. Makes him divine. And so at this root is this word conciliate. And so if I can use that term, I would suggest to you that in Genesis 1 and 2, I would suggest to you that we were in a conciliate relationship with God. That there is God and there is humanity and there is the rest of creation, and that in the beginning when God said it was good and it was very good, that was because we were in a conciliate relationship. We were other than each other, but we were in a relationship that was like we were meant to be. We overcame this barrier of not being God to be in a relationship with God. But then Genesis 3 happens and sin enters the world. And I don't know if you know this, but sin divides. Sin separates. And so sin entered the world. We then were separated from God, separated from each other, and separated from the rest of creation. If you want to see sin at work, well, just look on your campus for 1 minute. I mean, just sit there for 15 seconds and observe all that's happening. And you'll see sin at work. What I mean is that you will see dividing forces continuing to work. You'll see cliques on your campus dividing. Sin. You'll see male and female, males and females mistreating one another, not honoring one another in the image in which they are created. That's sin. It's divisive. You will see, even within our own selves, you will see someone who is created and made a boy or a male becoming separate from themselves and trying to become female because they are being divided even within themselves by sin. All right? And so even in this world, you'll see us dividing and separating from even the rest of creation. Well, we actually, as stewards of the rest of creation, actually have created this divide between us and it. We abuse this earth. We abuse the water resources we have. We abuse the food resources we have. We abuse the animals and the trees and everything that God created and said was good. And we actually begin, because of sin, to divide. And those that have a lot, they divide from those that don't have very much. Called class divide. And then, of course, you remember, and it's still true today in many ways, but you remember the images of a divided country in the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s. And then, of course, one who understood that he had the ministry of reconciliation stepped to the forefront with boldness and humility, understanding that only God could bring forth the Civil Rights Act of 1964. His name was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know if you know that history, but I want to make sure you do, because he understood that it was sin that was dividing our country based upon the color of your skin. He said, no, we will be a reconciled community, a beloved community. And so reconciliation then, this ministry of reconciliation, is a ministry of bringing back together that which is other into a relationship that is made from the very beginning. Now, let me put some legs on this for you, okay? So the ministry of reconciliation is what we've been given. Now, I want you to understand something about United Fresno. United Fresno has three kind of focuses. To be more proper, three foci, I think is the right way to say that. And so there are three things, three emphases that United Fresno has. And they see United Camp as one key way in which initiating those three emphases. Okay? The first emphasis is prayer and worship. Prayer and worship. Okay? So when you talk about the ministry of reconciliation, like we were talking about last night, really what we're saying is that the way in which you are going to enact and live in this new self, in the fullness of God, is you are going to have to dedicate and devote yourself to being in the presence of God on a regular basis. Okay? You are going to have to seek after God. I yearn and have a great passion for a church and a generation that would seek after God. That's how they'd be known. That they'd be known as a people who seek God. Not known for their fancy technology, not known for their big buildings, not known for the fancy cars in the parking lot, but they'd be known as a people who seek after God himself. And so, as you then return from camp to our community, one of the ministries that you have is really a ministry to yourself. That you would spend time in the presence of God. And for many of you, that is such a foreign concept because you are very new in your relationship with Jesus. And I want you to know that that's totally okay. And I want you to know that if you don't know what I'm talking about, that that's totally fine too, because I want to put some legs on this. Here's what I'm asking you to do. I want you, as you begin to allow God to work in you and for you to be reconciled in a deeper, more profound way to himself, I want you to understand the way in which that's going to happen is you're going to spend time individually in prayer. Now, I want you to know that prayer doesn't have to happen in a 1-hour window at a particular time of day. You can pray all day long as you go. I've heard some folks talk about these like 30-second prayers. I don't know what term or phrase you want to use, but listen, wherever you go, as you're sitting on the bus, waiting for the bus stop, in the car, in between classes, sitting in class with the 16 seconds before the bell's going to ring, you just offer up a prayer to God and say, God, it's great to be with you. Thanks for being with me. Father, would you speak through me today? God, would you begin to speak in the lives of those who are sitting around me right now? Just pray every day, throughout the day, okay? Secondly, I'll tell you, here's a quick thing. Many of you have these fancy smartphones or something like it, okay? Or you have the internet. You have access to the internet. I have signed up on my little phone. I have downloaded this Bible software type deal. This Bible application. And so I actually have signed up for a read through the Bible in 1 year thing that comes with my little Bible application. Do you all know what I'm talking about? Do you have something like that? Okay, so if you don't have it, it's totally free. I just download it, and what I do is I'm going through the Bible in 1 year. And so every day, at some point in the day, I read like the 2 or 3 chapters that it tells me to read. I want you to spend time in Scripture every day. And that's a very easy way to do it. Okay? And so prayer and devotion, and I just want you to take the time throughout the day to do that. It's absolutely critical for you in your reconciliation to God, okay? In that work. So that's first. Secondly, I want to say this. There is a second emphasis of United Fresno, and that is the emphasis of evangelism. All right? And so when it comes to the ministry of reconciliation, really what that is you are now inviting people, others, to be reconciled to God. That's evangelism. Is that you yourself, as you engage people who do not have a relationship with Jesus, you are inviting them into a relationship with Jesus. And that is the ministry of reconciliation to others. Okay? And so United Fresno is going to be hosting some different opportunities for that to happen on an organized front. But I want to put the onus on you as individuals, and I want to put the onus on the youth pastors.